All right, this is Dark Days Radio episode number 74. I'm, of course, one of your hosts, Mike, and tonight I'm joined by Chris. How's it going, Chris?
Hello. I always feel like I've been wanting to do an introduction, just do it as like Rick Star, wubba lubba dub dub, like, you know, motherfuckers. I've got this Irish Open Network Zero with that. What have I been up to? Lots. I mean, part of what this show is, what people listen to after we've done all the news. There's a lot of news. Other stuff, gaming-wise, Beasts of War videos for Kingdom Death have gone out.
Yeah, those are huge. Now. Very, very popular.
Yeah, people have already asked, like, oh, I can't wait for the next episode next week. And I was like, there ain't another episode. That was it. That was what we recorded in, like, the best part of a day and a half. I've got to go back and do more at some point. But it's not my day job to do that kind of thing, so... But that's great. I mean, the Kickstarter for that is just... I think it's gonna kill Exploding Kittens.
Oh yeah, I think so too. I need to go check.
I think it's last time I looked, it was definitely past $7.8 million.
Oh my gosh!
I've got in for the expansion set, so the update set and the Gambler's box, and it comes with like some other expansion stuff. And I think there's an opportunity. The pledge manager like wants to add some more stuff, so I mostly pick an expansion and just add it, and then that'll be it. Like I'm not going crazy. Like some of the pledge levels are nuts. Like seriously nuts. Otherwise, played a bit more of Leaders, a combined game, which is a brilliant board game. It seems to be our research group's favourite little game for board games night, because who doesn't want to play like Kennedy or Macmillan or whoever during the turn of the start of the Cold War in a Risk-like type of board game that's got an app for it. And otherwise, I got my friend into War Machine Horde, so he's got a Trollbloods army, so that's wicked. Nice. And it meant I got more stuff for my Scorn, so I've got tons of swordsmen now. And what else is there gaming-wise? So James stayed over over for a few days, so we actually got around to playing Dark Deeds, the little board game that Andy Chambers co-created.
Oh, right on.
It's great fun. I think it'd be more funny. I think it'd be more crazy if you've got more than like two people playing it. But again, that's like it's a nice little game you can pack away. Yeah, that's gaming wise. That's me gaming out. I mean, I'm meant to be getting my Geist game going, but I think that's not going to happen till like New Year now. The way things are going, it's just. Oh no, I know what I've planned. Terrible Tale of James Magnus, doing it again. Doing that one again.
That's for the third time, is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to run it as a kind of faux Ghost Adventures crew thing. So I think they're called Geist Stalkers International. So they're going to be a bunch of, I think the only way to describe it is like European ghost hunters in the US, though.
Oh, okay.
It's their last chance to make it big. And I thought that's a great juxtaposition as, you know, we're all the players are obviously, you know, from the UK, but to contrast that with the fact that they're going to be their characters are in a setting where firearms are freely available and all hell breaks loose. So, you know, great fun. How about yourself with gaming?
Well, you know, talking about the terrible tale of Magnus, I've always actually wanted to get ghost hunters here on this show. We could just ask them, like, so what do you guys do? Like, how does it work? And just like get information, because it seems like, especially with the Chronicles of Darkness and the Mortal's Blue Book, that's like one of the baseline things you might go for with a adventuring party, if you will. That would just be a fun episode to do.
Yeah, I think just to hear about how they feel as an experience, because obviously it depends whether you believe them or not is another thing entirely. And I think that for that type of thing would be less interesting. It's more about the feel and the experience, because clearly they go to these strange places and experience things. Whether they can explain it or not is another thing entirely. But that experience, and then knowing what that experience is and how to then knowing that, hopefully that inspires people for games. That's cool. Yeah,
definitely. But anyway, yeah, with my gaming, it's mostly just been tabletop. A lot of D&D 5th edition, which is funny because, you know, you've talked to me like 2 years ago, I would have been like, nah, D&D, never going to play it again, man. Never going to do it. But Now I've got one game I'm playing in, another game I'm running, which is like a super intense hex crawl based off of Attack on Titan, the anime. So it's really great. Having a lot of fun.
Oh, and the other thing I'll say, which I'm kind of proud of, Noble Armada got released. So Noble Armada
congrats,
3rd edition, which I co-wrote. So that's out via gratuitous plug mode. You can get it from FASA. It's on PDF. It's in a beta mode, so not all the art is there. We can get some errata, and it'll be in a hardback book eventually. Hopefully, if it does well, then there'll be some sort of way they'll update the models, because they're quite old models, I'll freely admit, but if they can update them, that's great. And I mean, hopefully people will receive it. I mean, it's nothing like Drop Fleet Commander. Now I've seen how that works locally, and it's nothing like Battlefleet Gothic. So
excellent. Well, if people want to check out Chris's spaceship combat game, we'll put a link in the show notes.
Oh, cheers, Mike.
Indeed.
So I guess it's White Wolf News then, right?
Yeah, let's head on over to that. So Chris, cool thing went on. White Wolf sent out a survey and wanted us to give some insight into the future of the World of Darkness and Chronicles of Darkness. So I filled it out. Did you fill it out?
I filled it out. It was a long... I remember it being a long questionnaire.
Indeed.
It was an interesting questionnaire. I can't remember what the questions are in it anymore, though. But
I did fill it everything. Out. Television, where you how you get to your film media these days, because it's quite decentralized, not just cable TV anymore. Just stuff about different properties, the card games like Vampire: The Eternal Struggle, asking like how much money you spend on World of Darkness stuff every year. The basic kind of marketing questions that they want to get a feel for the for the market and how they can kind of put out their products, that sort of thing. It was interesting, and we'll, again, put a link in the show notes so that people can check it out and give their feedback if they're interested. Yeah,
and then, of course, we've got quite a few new books out since we last put out an episode. So new from Onyx Path is Secrets of the Covenant. So this, I believe, is a different format of a book to what the old Covenant books were. So this is more kind of like the Requiem clan books. So it's more of an in-setting kind of document artifact, but also it has rules and ideas in there and new things. So I need to check that out. It'll be interesting how it compares to the older books, which I did like. They were dry in places, but I treated them more as textbooks, whereas I think this is maybe hopefully a bit more accessible for some people. We've also got out Hurt Locker, which is for Chronicles of Darkness. So that's kind of that's sort of an update of Armory, but then it's
sort of. It has a lot of like extra systems, specifically more for like combat and the more dramatic conflicts of the game. There's a lot of new optional rules and new merits and flaws and the like. So it's definitely a grab bag of mechanics.
Yeah. Dark Eras is in traditional print run now.
Yep.
I need to delve through that. Yeah, go on.
I think I got my copy, but I never opened the box. Just kind of sitting there, so I should probably check that out, make sure I got the right thing.
The sin of Kickstarters. And we've had, what is that? Promethean 2nd edition came out, so now we've got in line the potential of a Kickstarter for Hunter the Vigil 2nd edition, which I'm super excited for, because I think Hunter the Vigil is just such, for Chronicles of Darkness represents the diverseness of the setting as it is, because there's just everything in there and different levels of gameplay that you can do. So that'll be great to see what they do as stretch goals to update, because obviously certain splats have been addressed in the kind of Mortal Remains type books, or the Witch Hunters book, or those type of books. So again, to see those updates for 2nd edition will be great. What else is Onyx Path put out for Classic World of Darkness?
I think that's pretty much it at the moment. It was a very, very Chronicles of Darkness heavy season since our last episode. Coming up, I think there's a couple Kickstarters, but I can't speak to it with any confidence at the moment.
Okay.
But you know what? You know who is putting out some cool stuff for the One World of Darkness? That would be By Night Studios, because they just released Mind's Eye Theater Werewolf 20th. Very interesting. Follows in the same suit as their Vampire Mind's Eye Theater book that came out, I think, 2 years ago at this point. And actually makes some setting changes and different meta plot additions to kind of make things more convenient for LARP events and that sort of a focus. So you might have heard about some of these things in our previous episode where we actually interviewed some of the folks over at By Night. But some of the things that kind of stood out to me are that now the Garou Nation is sort of its own. It actually has like this democratic council at the top. So they're trying to add in some more political elements to the game overall. Another change is that, as we were talking about in the previous episode, the werewolf population, the Garou population, is actually increasing because now they've sort of discovered a right where the kinfolk can actually be bitten and become turned into Garou. At the expense, though, that they tend to go into frenzy a lot. They're kind of lunatics in many ways. And also, the kinfolk are now sterile. So they are kind of using up their reproductive resources up front to help out in the battle against the apocalypse. So that's pretty cool. And in addition to that, they're also bringing up this kind of new plot with the Storm Eater aspect of the worm, and they are linking it quite a bit to climate change. I'm not sure if I really agree with this. I'll actually have to check out the book and kind of read it. I could see it going either way, with it being a little too overt or just kind of being like this cool, subtle addition to the game.
Yeah, I mean, I can see what you're mostly getting at, because it's one of those kind of things like you don't want all the ills of the world to be due to every supernatural thing in the world. Sometimes it's far more interesting to have man as his worst enemy than it being insert villain X, Y, or Z. But we'll see where that goes. And obviously that may well be coming from higher up with White Wolf and how they see werewolf becoming, it's a new edition of werewolf eventually, like Vampire 5th that was announced. So that could be something to do with the meta plot that they're developing there. So we'll see. Wow, yeah, that's a lot of stuff. I guess the other big bit of news, which goes into then our next topic, is to do with World of Darkness Berlin, isn't it, Mike? So we have been invited to be we are the official podcast for that event. So we're still working out what that means being there. But I think there's some great ideas. But the main thing is we'll be there documenting it. I think the idea is that we'll obviously take some great pictures of some of the events running. Like in particular, it'd be great to help them just take some great in situ pictures of like the LARP event, Enlightenment in Blood. I would love to help out in that element. Be a lurking watcher like in the Highlander series, just watching but do not get involved. But also, it'll be great to interview everyone from White Wolf and By Night Studios and something. So I thought it'd be great to have with the microphones and a good enough computer and a good internet connection, a live podcast running, perhaps, and to keep it kind of fun. People can drop in and out of the podcast as events are going on and closing, so they can come over and talk about something else. I'm sure it would give people that are talking a bit of a breather to kind of decompress and talk that stuff, and just find out in more detail certain things which they feel like on stage is really hard to express in one go, but maybe it gives them another chance to explain things on a one-to-one basis. Hopefully, we can get some live questions coming in, so kind of a bit like a Reddit ask me anything kind of thing. Then I guess that's an idea, but like more interactive. And of course, we'll somehow edit the whole thing after, and mostly be in various blocks, and we put it out there. So that's really exciting. And I guess related to that, people can now, if they've not noticed, we have a new logo. Thanks to a wonderful friend of the show, And we have that logo available on various things through our little Redbubble online store thing. It's, all profits go to what? Buying stuff to review and keeping the lights on with the podcast. And that is it. And prize support. It means that, you buy a t-shirt, that means you've got a chance of getting some cool, hard copy from, premium color hard copy from Drive-Thru RPG in one of our competitions. So the Etsy shop for our friend who designed the logo is Ghost of Yukari. Again, it will be all in the show notes. I think we're going to try and get it to design a new Network Zero logo as well.
Sweet.
Some ideas are going on for that.
Yeah, it's definitely good.
But yeah, what do you think of logo, Mike?
It's great. It might be on a T-shirt that I own now.
Oh, it's very when I saw it, when eventually kind of because like when the designer did the first pass on it, and we were kind of looking at horns and stuff, and then eventually was like trying to keep the lightning strike motif. It's very Hellraiser, I think. It's kind of it's our pin.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, moving on then, I guess, is the main segment, which involves a certain event in deepest, darkest Europe. And this is our topic of highbrow storytelling.
Topics of highbrow storytelling.
So, Mike, this next segment, as we introduced just before the break, is our interview with the team who are organising, leading the World of Darkness Berlin event, which takes place, I guess, depending on how we edit this, hopefully soon enough that it's technically still next year, in May.
Yep, that's correct.
Thinking May. Yep. And we have with us Bjarke.
Yes, sir.
And we also have Johanna.
That would be me. Hi.
And we also have Juhana.
Hello, that is me.
So, if you take it in terms, as I've mentioned your names, just introduce yourself and kind of what role you're taking in this huge European World of Darkness event for White Wolf. That would be great.
Yeah, as you said, my name is Bjarke, and I'm the lead on the World of Darkness Berlin convention next year in May, where we, together with White Wolf, will hopefully get as many fans of the World of Darkness together and enjoy amazing times and play some LARPs and play some role-playing games and talk and discuss and learn from each other. And I think the key word is learn. We really want people to engage and show what they are doing with the World of Darkness and this world that we all love so much and have been engaged with for a long time.
And I'm Johanna. Like Bjarke, I'm an experienced designer by profession, and we work for the company, both of us, we indeed run the company that is also organizing this convention. And I also had this whole first career in the media, so I'm taking point on some of the communication stuff. But my big sort of game design geekdom has to do with community design and also safety and calibration. So I have the enormous privilege of looking at some of that stuff in regards to the convention, and also, of course, to the LARPs that we are designing, the big Nordic LARPs that we are running in conjunction with this event.
And Johanna.
Yeah, my name is Juhana Pettersson, and my sort of background is that I worked a lot I worked in television, done a lot of LARPs since the mid-90s, and this project, my sort of main role is to be the creative lead on Enlightenment in Blood. And Enlightenment in Blood is the big city LARP that we are playing on the streets of Berlin and in many different locations in the city. And the goal of which is to be a sort of kind of one night in the World of Darkness.
Excellent. Right. There's a lot of information in there to unpack, isn't there, Mike?
Yeah, certainly. So you guys were already kind of getting into this a little bit, but I kind of wanted to ask you to... before we get into the specifics of the World of Darkness and, this World of Darkness Berlin convention, the LARPs you're putting together, I kind of wanted to just ask you guys a little bit of your street cred, which you guys were already giving us some indication of. So maybe starting with Bjarke, what kind of LARPs have you run before, and what can we kind of expect from these events?
I started LARPing. I started in LARP back in 1999, or I ran my first LARP in 1999. That was the Copenhagen Chronicles series. So it was like a vampire campaign in Copenhagen, and my very first LARP back in 1994 was a cyberpunk LARP at the Danish Convention Festival, where that year Mark Reinhagen was the guest of honor. Nice. So I played some cyberpunk with him back when I was very young, and of course starstruck at that time. So, well, I'm still a little bit starstruck when I meet him, of course. But I've been doing LARP since the late 90s, and I've done a lot of projects, from running a 3-day simulation in an old Soviet submarine to hundreds of children fighting with swords, to a LARP we ran a year and a half ago, and are going to run again next October, which is called Inside Hamlet, which is 100 people version of Shakespeare's Hamlet at the real castle Elsinore in Denmark, and they live at the castle and go through the story of Hamlet over 3 days. Then I've organized conventions, fan conventions. There's a LARP convention called Knudepunkt, which has run for 20 years, and I've organized a couple of those. And one of the other core members of the team, Troels Sparkhold, who is lead like project manager and production on this thing, he has been lead on that convention a couple of times as well. So, and then we've done a lot of commercial work for big international companies and on various art festivals and across the world, in the US and in Europe. So we've done a lot of stuff, and I also come out of the event business, and done like hundreds of Christmas parties and company events and stuff like that. Boring stuff like that. The LARPs is where I really have my passion. So
understood. And Johanna, I have the same question for you. And you kind of mentioned that you had some background in media. So I was a little curious if you could expound upon that a little bit, and just kind of, tell us how that's played into some of your street cred on the LARP scene.
But actually, it's weird. In some ways, they're not connected at all. I guess most people who are just old enough to have sort of gotten onto the internet to like remember a time before the internet, right. And a time when geek knowledge wasn't very useful in our professional careers. I had like a day job, and my day job was being a culture journalist. I was a film critic first, and eventually I became a TV show host, I guess you'd say in English, and a radio presenter. And I had this whole career doing that. Of course, after a while, it turns out that being a woman who's knowledgeable about geek subjects actually became super helpful in that career. So I guess it's played out in that way. It's never been a secret in my professional career that I have super geeky interests and that I'm a role player. And in the Nordic countries, being a LARPer and being a role player has never been as stigmatized as it is in some other parts of the world. But even so, I think, my celebrity is pretty limited, but in Sweden, where my career has been, I think I'm probably one of the few people that like some random person might actually be able to name as somebody who knows LARP. But I don't think that actually gives you any credit in the geek community. But then over time, of course, the media landscape has changed a lot, and participatory media are so much more of a thing now. So now I've been working in transmedia and also doing event production and in games in different ways. And suddenly a lot of these decades of like playing games and loving games and doing a lot of LARP theory, especially, which has been my sort of, I guess, like my contribution more than making LARPs, even though I've ran a bunch as well. That has played into the work stuff, so that now weirdly what started out as like a passion and the job have convened somehow in the middle.
Interesting, very interesting. And Juhana, take us home. What kind of street cred do you have?
Well, the very first time I played in any kind of a LARP at all was in '96, and it was a vampire LARP. And the funny thing was that I actually had to lie my age to get in, because there was an age limit of 16, and I was only 15 years old. But
nice.
But I wanted to get in very badly, because it seemed like the sort of coolest thing in the world. And I have to say that it was. When I got in, it was quite magical to walk into this world of vampire. But of course, that was when I was 15 years old. Since then, I've done a lot of different kinds of games. The very first LARP I organized was also at that point based on Changeling the Dreaming. Then later on, I did sort of many years. I worked as a journalist and TV producer, making a show about video games, and wrote a bunch of books and stuff like that. But in terms of LARP, I think probably the things that people might know are, I know that when Nordic LARP comes up, there is one kind of urban legend that people mention.
Ooh.
And that is the urban legend of the flower LARP, where you play cancer patients who are wallowing in flour. And I'm proud to say that that's my game. So the game is called Luminescence, which I organized, and it's been kind of funny to see it become this sort of myth or story of part of the story of LARP from where we come from. Recent years, in 2013, and then again this year, part of the organizing team of the LARP Halat Hisar, which means state of siege in Arabic. And I was a producer on that LARP. And what that LARP is that it was a Finnish-Palestinian co-production. And what we wanted to do is to make a LARP about the Palestinian sort of political experience. What's it like to live in that situation, but in Finland, for Finnish and international and also Palestinian participants. And that is probably one of the games I'm sort of most proud of because of its political function and also in a creative way.
Excellent.
Cool. I think that's a really good introduction. You've given a good broad view of kind of what each of you, skill set and your background that you bring to the World of Darkness Berlin event, and also it's interesting to know each of your individual backgrounds with both LARPing and I think also how understanding how the experience you have with like different types of media kind of helps with creating and running these events. So I think the first thing, because it's World of Darkness Berlin, that I need to ask is why have you chosen Berlin to be the location for this event? Because I think that you may have had a few choices of different places around Europe. So why did Berlin stand out as a good location?
Well, Berlin is a very, very interesting city, and personally, I love it very much. It's sort of weird mix between it's like a place that feels very cutting edge and very interesting on the art scene and culturally, and at the same time, it's very sort of run down in especially the eastern part. So it has that weird, almost World of Darkness feel. So you know that there's stuff going on basically around the corner wherever you are, but you're not quite sure that you can find it. But when you do, it's always amazing. And that's at least my experience with Berlin. And on a practical level, it's also that it's a city that's very easy to travel to, and quite cheap to travel to, especially, of course, from Europe. And it has so many options of any type of accommodation that you like, from very expensive to like super, super cheap hostels. And that was also a big thing when we chose Berlin, is that it should be accessible for everybody. We know that the price tag, of course, of the convention is quite high, or it feels quite high, but everything around it should be very cheap. And Berlin is a very cheap city to be in. So
I'd also like to add that that Berlin, because of its history, which is sort of both lovely and very violent and dark at different times, it carries that history in a really visible way. When you're there, you always have this feeling of cities within cities, that there is this really like intense nightlife. There's a lot of amazing dance music coming out of Berlin still, and has been historically as well. But I mean, by historically, I guess I meant in the 80s, but I suppose that was also true in like the 1920s and the 1880s and so on. It's been the city of like high culture and street life that I just think emotionally syncs so well with White Wolf storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there obviously for conferences and so forth related to my job, but so I understand what you mean, because so for Mike, I don't know how much you've ever seen of Berlin and sort of things. So there's places which have been rebuilt post-war. There's Potsdamer Platz has some very tall kind of skyscraper type designs, and it's reminiscent, I think, some sort of kind of like San Francisco kind of design of buildings.
Okay.
But then you've also got like the large parkland, which is near the Reichstag, which is so vast you can quite easily imagine, werewolves quite happily hunting, patrolling that area. And that's also near the Tiergarten. That's the Tiergarten, and you've also got like the zoo nearby that it leads into. And then, of course, you've also got like the newer governmental buildings of Germany. And if you saw those, you think they're straight out of like some so they're very futuristic. And there's there's also that futurism comes in with certain buildings because, of course, how they're designed. Post-communist, communist Germany kind of element comes in on certain building designs as well. So it's a crazy mix of different things there. And then you've got the very historical element, so like where the opera house is, and there's also like I think they're rebuilding the palace that got torn down by the communist government at the time, but they're rebuilding it, and they're using to help rebuild it to create the internal shell for the external faux palace. That's all recovered from the old German communist government building. So they reclaimed that still to make this beautiful thing that the communists tore down in the first place. And they regretted it, of course, didn't they? They went, we need to tear down the old power. But no, they regretted that beautiful building got destroyed. So It's a crazy little city. Well, I say little, it's not, but it's great.
I guess it also has this idea of the split city. I mean, just because it was literally a split city for so long. A lot of these stories, a lot of these games are about factions and about territories and about like fighting for power, and just this idea of the one city where the Cold War sort of met in the streets or happened in like literally in the streets with a wall in the middle. That's also super powerful. I should also mention at this point, obviously, tinged with a ton of tragedies. So like we don't trivialize that at all, but it is like emotionally super resonant.
Yeah, and Juhana and I have been combing through the old book of Berlin by Night. And some of it is good, and a lot of it is not so good, I think.
A lot of it is material that we are not using, but I think that some stuff in there is still quite resonant. I have actually another thing which probably is quite obvious, but about Berlin is that the scene in terms of Vampire and the World of Darkness is quite strong.
I was just trying to think. The other thing, I don't know if you guys have actually also had a look, because it would be, I don't know, at least interesting ideas. I think Mike, one of the settings I still want to run, it's for Chronicles of Darkness, but the newer version of Demon, that version of Demon uses Berlin as its setting for exactly the reasons we're saying, which is, it's got that history of like, the Cold War kind of espionage feel to it as well. Does that cover that question of why Berlin is chosen? I think there's a lot of information there, which is, I think it'll be interesting to see that in play, how it's implemented in each of the different kind of events and venues for those events that you have lined up. If we move on then, because clearly you've been trawling through Berlin by Night and picking and choosing bits you like from it. So as you've got more and more involved with White Wolf and the games that White Wolf is known for, what kind of things have, as you've explored these game settings, that have kind of jumped out and you've discovered and just gone, wow, I need to include that in my game, or that is in its own right the story of a game, of a LARP that I need to run?
Well, we've been, ever since we started this project with White Wolf, I've been sort of taking all the books down from the shelf and also talked a lot with Johanna, who, of course, who have a very extensive collection of White Wolf books, way bigger than mine, maybe five times as big, I think.
There's at least 100 White Wolf books that I don't have.
Yeah, I know. I think I have 100, but not more than that. There's so much that I want to do, and that I think that's the big problem with this, is that when you start reading, and it doesn't matter what book that you start reading, there's always stuff that could be a great LARP, big or small. So I'm not sure I want to pick something specific, but a story that we've been talking a lot about that we really would love to do is take a bunch of werewolves and players and make a werewolf game at Midsummer's in the utmost northern part of Norway. And just because since the sun is up all the time, that could be a very, very interesting experience and just get into cars and make a road movie and just drive it 12 hours straight up into that sun. So we have already sort of halfway designed that, and we'll see if we can get around doing it for next midsummer. That would be absolutely wonderful. And I haven't really engaged much with Changeling, but it's really growing on me. So I've been reading a lot of the old Changeling stuff, and I think I would love to do something in that space. I never engaged with it back in the day when it came out. Didn't think it was for me, but it's definitely it's a really cool game and very dark. I thought it was very fluffy and beautiful, but it is quite a dark game. So I enjoy it very much now.
For me, it's like I played a really like a vast amount of Vampire and these other games when I was in high school and when I was younger, and then a little bit less in later years. And I think that what happened to me when I played really a lot of it is something that has happened to many other people also who have played a lot of this stuff, is that you start to go to drift away into the details. And some of the very basic things about how these games work kind of disappear when you are too engaged in some of the more esoteric questions of the lore. And now that I have started reading these books again from a more of a design perspective, I've really kind of fallen in love again with some of the very simple things. And sometimes that also creates new perspectives. For example, like Bjarke talking about doing a werewolf game in Norway. And because when you read Werewolf the Apocalypse, you will notice that like nature, or the experience of nature, is obviously very central to that game. So then I thought that maybe, therefore, it would make sense to make the experience of being in nature also central to the LARP about werewolf, since those things are so closely tied in the game. So for me, it's really been a sort of a journey of discovery, all of these games, which I think are extremely strong. And I almost like feel that there is still some unexplored territory there. Some of those ideas.
Yeah, certainly. Johanna, you bring up an excellent point. And especially with regard to werewolf and kind of, getting back to nature and the simplicity of the game's overall concepts. I do know of one Werewolf the Apocalypse LARP around here in New England, and it's actually, they go and they basically just do like a weekend camping trip, and that's really how they set their werewolf game. And also, here on Darker Days, we heard a story of Sam Chupp, who was one of the early White Wolf writers, and he had a werewolf LARP where they just kind of played on the beach shore, which was definitely a lot of fun. It seemed like they had a great time with that. So I think you're definitely on the right track in that regard.
It's funny. There's a werewolf LARP campaign in Denmark called Rage Across Denmark, which ran for like a really long time. It's played in a really systems-light style by these super immersionist players, and it's been going on for years and years. They design it collaboratively, and they run it collaboratively, and I think they play it outdoors, like just literally sitting around the fire in the middle of the night. And everyone involved is a really shockingly good storyteller in, I guess, both senses of the world. Like they are also really good at telling stories. And a lot of this gameplay is just telling these stories about their community. And I have friends in this campaign who have lived with this, like with their wolves, with these characters for like 5 years or 8 years. And they're very religious about not ever missing a game and so on. So for one thing, it's a pure example of this like magical tension between what these IPs bring, that the IP provides this world and the inspiration, and then what the players bring, which is the community and the life and these amazingly complex and moving stories. And even when sometimes the game mechanics of a specific game or some of the focus of gameplay in some of these properties is actually counter to what the core concept has been. The concept is so strong that people will, buy these books and just mod them somehow. Just they're going to find the thing that they can play, and they create these things, and they love. And they don't come out and say, "Oh, this was a terrible game." They say, "This was a great game, and it allowed me to create the thing that I wanted to create." If this makes sense.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, like the By Night Studio stuff is really great for the accessibility of character creation and all that. So I definitely see what you're going with.
And I think Lair of the Hidden, I would love to do Lair of the Hidden.
Can you rent out the castle for that?
You can. We've talked to them. It's very, very expensive. So we'll see. Yeah, they have weddings there and so on. So you can rent the castle. I think it's burnt down in the lore, but
no, it's hidden from the eyes of humanity.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's how it is. Sorry about that. Yeah,
I'm a complete nut for anything Venetian. anything Venetian, like Mike, like the Dark Ages setting has a whole segment in Venice with nasties and everything that leads up to the Fourth Crusade. So again, like being involved, a historical vampire setting there would be amazing. And I think there's plenty of places you can rent out for stuff there. Having been to a masquerade ball in the past, that would be cool. That's on my list of things I would love to see done.
That sounds amazingly cool. We should do that. So
I should say, like we talk so much about LARPs because we're all LARP designers and we're passionate about that stuff. I should say we're also all tabletop players. So like every time we have one of these ideas and it's not immediately convenient to run a LARP in Venice, which for other reasons we've been looking into, then this stuff is going to like show up in somebody's tabletop game in no time at all. It's wonderful to have both of these platforms available so we can tell those stories even when the productions become prohibitive.
Yeah. And Johanna, you were going to say?
No, I was just going to say that I think Venice specifically, like the last time I was in Venice, I noticed that the old city in the center is because it's very historically preserved, and it's very LARP friendly also. I think just in terms of like what kind of a space it is. And I felt it. I thought it was very inspiring, and I also think that Venice is an interesting city in the world of darkness. For example, one idea that we had at some point was that would it be interesting to do like a Giovanni game that was physically Venice is the Giovanni city that would have like 3 levels. Where at one level you play the vampires, but there's another level where people play mortal members of the family, and a third level where people play dead members of the family.
Oh right, yeah.
Since the Giovanni sort of bridge all of these levels, and then maybe you could do it sort of like I love this idea of doing World of Darkness at the actual place where it's supposed to be happening in the fiction. So Lair of the Hidden in the actual castle in real Romania, or Giovanni in Venice, or like because you can go there, you can rent the locations. It's entirely possible to do that.
It gets very quiet in Venice on the day after Carnival. I know it's pretty much empty, so you have a lot of space to kind of almost take over. But moving on anyway, Mike, before we wax lyrical about that city, we've got another question.
Yeah, we do. So this one comes from someone on Facebook, Jorge. And he was asking if this would be only a One World of Darkness event, or if there would be any Chronicles of Darkness material, specifically LARPs or anything like that. He's very excited about any kind of Requiem games that might take place in Berlin.
Well, we don't currently have any Chronicle stuff programmed. We are aware that it has an enormous fan base, obviously, and from our perspective, it's totally all in the same family. Like if you love the White Wolf stuff, you're warmly welcome. I think that, like for us, just for the team, World of Darkness is sort of the first love, and it also seems, from what we can see from our vantage point of talking to these people with some regularity, like with Vampire, the 5th edition of Vampire coming out next year, White Wolf is needing to focus on that right now. But we're not White Wolf. So for us, for our Berlin program, we are open for suggestions. But for me personally, what I would really love, because I don't know Chronicles that well at all, I'd love to hear like a really knowledgeable panel about comparing the two, about, I mean, not on the surface level, that's obvious that you can just read up on, but like which lessons or concepts for Chronicles would really deserve to be integrated in World of Darkness going forward. And we're at this moment as well. We don't know what's going to happen with Chronicles. You guys would know, actually. You guys have all the news.
Chronicles is firmly being developed by Onyx Path Publishing, so it sits there quite happily and is having new books put out all the time. I recently brought out like Secrets of the Covenant, which is a 2nd edition Requiem book. But I mean, I know like in the UK there's a UK wide Vampire the Requiem LARP that goes on. I think actually entirely for Chronicles of Darkness as well. So it is there. It's be tapped in, but I can acknowledge the fact that White Wolf, where they are right now, are trying to obviously capitalize on the most well-known IP that they have, and you can't fault them for that. That's fine. But it would be nice again to just see, like, in much the same way, Chronicles of Darkness publishing, obviously, and the way White Wolf and Onyx Path kind of, you had that whole White Wolf was and wasn't, and Onyx Path rose up, and obviously that kept at least the wheels turning to allow World of Darkness to come back and have a 5th edition. In the same respect, it'd be great if, off the coattails and success of one World of Darkness, that the other World of Darkness, but isn't the World of Darkness, but is Worlds of Darkness, because I think that's the main feature of Chronicles of Darkness. You can make it, the players make it their own, the people that run it make it their own, because there's no meta plot. It might allow for, you can really do, possibly, if people want, more variety of events in some respects. You can really go off-piste because you don't need to conform to a meta plot. So
for us, I think like we're also just enormous believers in bringing people from different communities together. So like on every, like whether it's like vampire players from different countries or indie designers and people who create scenarios for existing systems, or all of these different kinds of, like, from our perspective, like all role players benefit from speaking to each other. If you're creating anything in role-playing games, talking to other people of similar interest is going to make us all better. So I don't see, like, if you love vampire stories or werewolf stories, yes, like you should come and hang out and have all of these conversations. So I mean, get in touch about what it could be. It's not the focus of the convention right now, but we're really open to listening and learning more.
Cool. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that, or does that kind of answer everything on that question, do you think?
Yeah, I think that answers the question. Like, I can just say, like, for me personally, I'm just right now what I'm doing is I'm reading through a lot of Chronicles of Darkness books, because there's so many good ideas in there also that we can, for example, use in the LARPs, that although they are set in the classic World of Darkness, but a good idea is a good idea, and sometimes those are kind of structural, or they're kind of subtle ideas that you nevertheless kind of pick up on.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. I mean, Mike, the whole point about this podcast, whenever we've done book reviews, we've always said, like, yeah, it's for this game, but there's nothing ever stopping anyone using and transporting ideas from one thing to the other. If it works for your own game, and if it works, like, I mean, I'm sure, like, some of the more setting and historical material possibly in Chronicles of Darkness is perhaps in places maybe a bit more accurate, because of course I think they put a bit more effort into trying to get writers from those places to write about that setting. Like the whole Shadows of the UK book for Chronicles of Darkness, all the writers are British for that, so it doesn't seem kind of hokey, written from someone that's never been there. So moving on, so End of Line was, of course, the first kind of the Vampire the Masquerade Nordic style LARP that was run, and at World of Darkness Berlin, it's going to be run for the third time, but actually you're going to run it multiple times at World of Darkness Berlin.
Yeah, twice.
So what kind of things? So we've interviewed someone that's taken part in that event in the first one, and also we've read about people's experiences and reviews of that. So having run it already twice before now, and I guess maybe you've demoed or at least tried other things out elsewhere. What kind of things have you learned in running that game, and then what surprises have emerged when you have run it that make the different instances of running that game kind of distinct? So really, what surprised you, what's emerged and made you thought that was a completely different way to how it was done the other way, but is interesting to take forward into running the same game at Berlin?
I think that like the way the game is designed, it's designed to be very emergent, so that we try to give the participants as many tools as possible, and then they use in a way that makes sense to them. And what this means is that it's kind of like a very surprising game by design. And one characteristic of that game is that both times, both in Helsinki and in New Orleans, at some point I'm walking in the game, I'm looking around, and I'm starting to think that I'm not sure even exactly what is happening anymore, because I'm not connected, because I'm not in the game, I'm out of it. But I can just sense the energy. The energy level is very high. People are very intense. They are very, very strongly moving about, doing stuff. So I think, okay, it's looking good, but I would really love to hear the stories afterwards, like what it was all about. I think if we go into very specific lessons, I think the importance of location and how the location affects the game can be seen very kind of clearly when it's run in different locations. The Helsinki game was run in an abandoned house or like an apartment building, a complete building that was turned into a squat and then rented to us. So that's a space that has kind of like we had a dance floor on the attic and lots of like small nooks and crannies and little places you could go. And what that meant was that masquerade, like it's a very concrete impact on the game in the sense that masquerade held very well. And the reason is that if you wanted to do some blood drinking stuff, you could hide. You could physically go into a closet if you wanted. So that's a thing that was made possible by the space. While in New Orleans we had a very different kind of space as part of the Grand Masquerade venue, which was a hotel. So it was part of the hotel space, and there were much less possibilities for this kind of thing. The space was much more compact, and that meant also that a certain kind of intensity was higher. The masquerade broke totally because there's no place to go to upkeep it. So I think it affected the kind of feeling. I think the Helsinki game was much more kind of subtle, while the New Orleans game was much more kind of crazy. It had this energy that was very powerful.
I think Johanna was mentioning before that core concept of End of the Line basically is, okay, it's Vampire the Masquerade, and it's a game of personal horror. But the runs came out, and that's like integrated into every character and everything that's happening in this LARP. But the runs came out quite different, so maybe it would be fair to say that the Helsinki run became about what is it like to actually, because I should say that like something like 2/3 of the characters in this LARP are mortals. So this is really about experiencing the masquerade, both from the perspective of humans who live in the world where vampires exist and from the vampire's perspective. And I think the New Orleans run, because the masquerade broke, it became, but it's also set in this, at a moment now, in a contemporary moment in World of Darkness where the Camarilla is not very present in a lot of places, including New Orleans. So then that LARP became a lot about like, what is the Camarilla for? What is the masquerade for? Because when it breaks, all hell breaks loose. And it's really fun to play, obviously. I mean, people were really happy afterwards. But then they also came out, and I asked like afterwards on the internet, like, what will you bring back to your home campaigns from this experience? And that was one of the things that people were saying. It's like, okay, we know now what the stakes are, because this bloodbath, it's really fun to be in this super tragic bloodbath on a dance floor, obviously. But afterwards, when you reflect on the meaning of what you have just experienced, you're going to learn something about the masquerade that's super powerful, actually.
Yeah, you can see kind of especially in the New Orleans run, some kind of dynamics that are about how the masquerade breaks that I had never thought of before. In a very simple way, that let's say that somebody who is a little bit maybe stupid makes a bad decision. They embrace somebody at the nightclub, and then that victim immediately goes a little bit crazy and embraces somebody else, and suddenly you have this kind of uncontrolled flood of new vampires sort of appearing. And nobody, and also because of the masquerade, the vampires don't really know, like, is that guy a vampire that just is going insane or a drug addict? We are not sure because how can you tell? So it's confusing for the mortals, but it's also confusing for the vampires, and then things can escalate and go wrong in a surprisingly quickly.
I think one thing that I learned also was that. I mean, it was a complete coincidence, but this, because we were at Grand Masquerade this year running this LARP, and it happened by coincidence to be at a very interesting moment, slotting into these ongoing conversations in the US Mindside Theatre community in particular about immersive playing styles, and also about player safety, about how to play evil stories while like not being dicks to each other, basically. And, this week By Night Studios announced this anthology. I think they call it Mindside Theatre Immersion Secrets that I'm writing in. And also a bunch of the writers in that anthology played End of the Line. And I think the causality is not like super clear. I think that End of the Line is attracted a lot of people who are already interested in these issues, and a lot of World of Darkness players, vampire players specifically, who are interested in looking at tools just like stealing really good ideas from other gaming cultures for how to make games more interesting and also more safe. And of course, the reason why you would want to make them more safe, that the players would have a higher level of trust, is that it allows you to engage with darker stories. Like you can tell these very gruesome stories in much more realistic styles if the players aren't enemies, but work sort of towards the same goal. And my understanding from speaking to a lot of players and at Grand Masquerade in general, and some also who played End of the Line in the US, that a lot of the conversation had been a little bit theoretical. But I mean, because we have this design which has a very strong workshop and long workshop integrated, where you learn these tools, these consent negotiation techniques, and in this LARP, the players have complete control of what kinds of stories they engage in, and also the players have complete control in the simulation level. So I can decide at all times how physical, for instance, or how sensual the interactions are going to be. And that allowed them to play at a level of touching and violence and intensity that you wouldn't be able to do in a safe manner, or that people wouldn't even be willing to do without those safety rules. So it's fun, I guess, always when you do something somewhere, it has these other impacts that you don't know about. We had absolutely no agenda to go and like change something or demonstrate something in the United States. We were just like, we want to run this LARP, and we have designed this LARP in this way because this is the way you need to design it to be able to play this content. And then it happened coincidentally to affect these other conversations. So it'll be really interesting to see who comes to Berlin to play it there, because it has really strong word of mouth, and I think people are curious about this. And we encourage stealing, like come and try it, and whatever works for you, just like take it and bring it back to your LARP and use it for something cool there.
Nice. So I think we're already kind of, shifting focus into our next question here, which is, based on your experiences with some of the previous work you've done, how does the World of Darkness LARP community kind of differ from other groups you've worked with, and what makes them different and special?
For me at least, is that I think that because the world is so rich and very much engineered for us to fill in the gaps, it becomes very real and tangible when you design for these worlds or play in them. That is very easy to become very passionate about the direction. And I think if you put on sort of that filter of the World of Darkness and you look at our world, it's super, super easy to sort of see sort of the fingerprints of werewolves or vampires or mages or changelings. And I think that is where it starts, that it is so good at a good place to tell stories, and they become very intricate and interesting and sexy and dangerous. And that creates a community that is very passionate and is very focused about the world, and I think that's where it starts. And of course, there's many other passionate LARP communities, but in particular the World of Darkness community is a very, very passionate, and there's many strong opinions, and there's many sort of schools of where to take it and how to do it, and that all comes out of that passion.
So like I mentioned earlier, I was quite young. I lied my age to get into Vampire LARP, but I played in that campaign for many years in that particular part of the sort of World of Darkness LARP community, in this tiny corner of it. And many of those people I met in that LARP are still some among my closest friends right now, and also people I like make LARP with and play tabletop games with and so on. So I feel from that perspective, it feels very close to me. But there's a couple of things that I have recently grown really to appreciate in this community. One of it is the tradition of making LARPs sort of in the city, like we are doing in Berlin, in Enlightenment in Blood. But that has a long history of this type of game in Finland, in other Nordic countries, all over the world. I've heard examples of all kinds of super cool games, and I think the World of Darkness is uniquely suited as a fictional environment for making those games, because it is our world, sort of. You hear cool stories and very, very kind of inspiring things about what kind of crazy things people have done with that framework. And the other thing about this community that I've recently started to notice is that when you go on Facebook and join these fan groups, about Vampire the Masquerade or Mage the Ascension, like I have done, you notice very, very extremely detailed discussions about different kind of points in the game. And I was always every time I read one of those discussions, I think that the sort of stuff that is being created, it has to be able to somehow withstand this kind of engagement. That you can't make stuff in a half-assed way. It has to be robust. It has to be good quality, so that when people engage with it on that level as these people are doing, then it still works.
I want to say something about the players, but I'm in a similar situation, Johanna, as you. Like, so many of my closest friends for like decades now are, WoD LARPers or they're playing all these games around the table. It's so much of this gameplay in these worlds. I think maybe especially Vampire, but I think all of this stuff. No, actually not even just especially Vampire. All of them. The gameplay is so cerebral, whether you LARP or tabletop. I mean, not in the line. That's very physical and sweaty. People will be sweating on each other. But a lot of these, typically, these games are very cerebral, and it attracts players that are really smart and often verbal. And it means that, and obviously when you meet them, like out of character, really nice. So smart, verbal, nice people are just great company. And then I guess also because of the nature of, that's, I think, specific for Vampire. Vampire attracts people who love drama. And this is like good sides and bad sides. From a community design perspective, I think we have to remember that we're engaging with communities that love stories and love intrigue. But if you keep that in mind and sort of design for it, then these are some of the best people you can hang out with. Said she, sort of self-congratulatorily. But I really believe it. And always when I sort of meet these new friends, oh God, we made like 50 new friends in the US this year. And hanging out with them on Facebook has just been like the best. And you can see it from their friends and like their walls that this is, the fans of these IPs are really similar everywhere you go.
Awesome. So yeah, we've got another question from Facebook, and Andrew asked, "How does White Wolf LARP plan to bring in new fans going forward?" And I know you guys aren't White Wolf itself, but I figured you guys could talk a little bit about how these really in-depth LARP experiences that you're creating here and developing, how you see them bringing in new people going forward, or how other LARPs you've run have really like gotten fresh blood in the past.
As you said, that is a question I think White Wolf should answer, and they should probably answer it when you talk to them in Berlin. But at least in my discussions with White Wolf, and also what they presented at their keynote in New Orleans, is that one of the four main things that they're focusing on is LARPing and making sure that people engage directly with the meta plot and directly with the world itself, and they firmly believe that what they're doing and the worlds that they're creating are inherently co-creative. And you need to engage with the fans of the IP and people who enjoy these worlds to be able to make sure that it goes forward. So, and they really, really want to listen, and they really, really want to make sure that you engage with them and have a direct effect on the world that they are now sort of recreating, or at least polishing.
I should probably also say that I guess one of the things, like I mentioned before, that we want people from different design traditions and communities to meet. And that's one of my biggest goal in Berlin, is to get people to come who are passionate about this stuff, but also have like a nagging feeling that either that they have come up with something that is amazing and other people should know, or that like it could be better. And I think almost everybody who has ever loved the World of Darkness has that feeling. Like there's so many things that you love, and then there are so many things that also annoy you. And there's yes, okay,
yeah. I think Mike and I can vouch for that with certain book reviews. Sometimes
what
is with that content, or that rule really?
Real, exactly. So then it's wonderful to like go to a place where A, other people have had this thought too, and B, like you can think about, and that White Wolf is. At this moment, they seem to be opening up the playing field and saying that how about you do co-create something? Can I say something about the scenario competition here that we're running as well?
Oh yeah, of course. That's really cool. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so we have a scenario competition. Anybody, you don't have to come to the convention. It's open for anybody to participate. And actually, what you submit is a 2-page synopsis in the first round, and it's for one shot that should be playable in a 4-hour time slot in a convention environment. So you can't demand a castle because we can't provide that. And there are 2 categories. You can either design for one of the existing systems, core systems, or you can design what we call a bespoke rules game. So one where you also design the game mechanics themselves. But everything has to fit on a very limited number of pages. It's all on our website. That's worldofdarkness.berlin/competition. You can find it all there. And then the finalists are going to be played at the convention. The finalists in both categories are going to be published as an anthology. I mean, it's an indie game anthology, basically, but it's going to be an official White Wolf product. And I think it's probably the first time that these sort of freeform, like that there's space for freeform designers or story game designers or LARP designers to make like an official White Wolf thing. Yeah. And White Wolf have set the theme for us, which is, they call it This World of Darkness. I like it. So they want us to engage. They want all the designers to engage in some manner, metaphorically or practically, with contemporary issues. But the awesome thing about that book is that like half of it's going to be, so I guess, some of the people who buy it are going to be people who just want to play a really nice, like, mage one-shot with their tabletop group. And then they might be lured into trying some of the freeformy or stuff or the bespoke stuff. And then some indie game players or people who are in those communities, who may love the World of Darkness, because a lot of people who now play other kinds of games grew up on this stuff, can remember what's so awesome about this. So it connects to your questions about like bringing in new blood. I'm very interested in bringing back the old blood who lost faith and say this is still awesome.
That sounds like a really great competition to be involved in. I would enter it. It would feel wrong to enter it. There's plenty of people that are doing stuff, because I linked Bjarke the one shot Mike played in that I did for Chronicles of Darkness.
Oh, right.
It's based on my hometown. And the legends around that, and that's just very, very mortal, typical, quintessentially English, and it all goes a bit weird. But I mean, but to think that people can get a chance to, like, their own little one shots that they can just roll out like that, it'll be great to see what content gets created and what can be used for any game, really, I guess, from that. Yes, so Enlightenment in Blood is, of course, this new LARP story event that you're running. So we know from what we've heard from End of Line, there were some interesting systems being used, like using scents to kind of, so you could know what type of mortal you were hunting and feeding from and so forth, and various other things like that. So because Enlightenment in Blood is, again, another vampire LARP, how is it in some respects different to End of Line? How is it in some respects similar? And are there some interesting systems that you're happy to kind of at least give a little teaser about, because it's something that's going to make that story different to the previous one?
So the way Enlightenment in Blood is different is it has a much kind of broader view of what it's trying to do. And that also means that it's not strictly speaking only a vampire LARP. It has also other things from the World of Darkness. What we are trying to do with it is to create kind of like total simulation, in a sense, of what Berlin could be in the World of Darkness. So it definitely does not have everything from the World of Darkness, but it has many things from the World of Darkness that it kind of makes sense to be in Berlin, things that we have an idea for. But what this also means that the kind of systems that are in place are extremely simplified, to make sure that this selection of different kinds of things that are present in the game functions properly and efficiently. But just to make sure that I haven't given the wrong impression of what it is, it's still very much a street level game. I think that the kind of core experience of what it means, so when we are talking about like the experiencing one night in the World of Darkness, then what that could mean is that, let's say that your character is a young anarch Bruja, let's say Bruja character, you have come from some shitty little town somewhere towards the bright lights of Berlin to have a more exciting life with cool young vampires, exactly as young people do who are also not vampires when it comes to Berlin. So you come there and then you start the game at an Anarch hangout with your Anarch buddies, and you do something there, but then you hear that there's maybe another party that sounds kind of exciting and there's interesting things going on, and you get an address, and then you go to that place, and then you experience more things. Maybe you meet some people you know from some other context, and you hear about a third place, and in this way you go from location to location and also organically find out different things. And while this young Anarch Brujah character is going through this story, there might be another character who is let's say the seneschal in the court of the Prince of Berlin, or maybe one of the princes of Berlin, and he starts in a completely different kind of position in the LARP, but maybe for him the Anarch party is strange and exotic and exciting and quite dangerous also. So they can it's very decentralized, and the experiences are very different in terms of which is your starting point.
Sorry, I just wanted to say I don't know exactly what's like been said publicly, so I can't. But maybe Johanna, maybe you could also give an example of what a werewolf experience could be like.
Yeah, so I think that for a werewolf, there are some very, I think, simple and straightforward ideas. We have the bone gnawers, we have the glasswalkers. So, and of course, there's still a long time until the LARP, or relatively long. We're working hard on it right now, but some of these ideas are still more on a development stage. But for example, depending on the locations we are able to get, a squad of bone gnawers, to me, makes like it's a very simple werewolf idea. And of course, if there's a squad of bone gnawers, there can also be an advertising agency of glasswalkers. And of course, the masquerade is key to making a LARP like this, because it can be that your vampire character goes to a party, and the party is in a squat, and then after half an hour, you realize that, wait a minute, this is a werewolf. I'm in a werewolf party. Oh my god, I'm gonna die. And this is, I think, something that can make it very interesting, because you can have these moments of horrible realization.
Oh, if only you could sign me up to play Virtual Adept. That's my bread and butter of a game. Obviously, I'm completely obsessed with them from Mage. But yeah, that sounds awesome. I mean, that's completely great. Mike, what do you think of that?
Sounds pretty good to me. And, I was looking through your website, and there was a lot of cool ideas that you guys were discussing regarding Enlightenment and Blood. And one of the things I was really curious about is that you guys are going to have some character creation software, I guess, on site to kind of help people with coming up with their character and making sure that they're able to get involved in some of the different stories in the game. I was hoping you might be able to just kind of drop some tidbits about that and kind of, get people excited.
Yeah, so normally traditionally in the Nordic LARP scene, you create all of the characters as a designer, and then you distribute it to your players. And that, of course, takes a lot of time. And if you have, like, say, 60 to 90 people as you have in End of the Line, it's doable. But when you take Enlightenment and Blood, where hopefully as many people that are coming to World of Darkness Berlin will participate, so it's potentially hundreds and hundreds of people, then it suddenly becomes very difficult to write those characters. Also, that people will sign up late for the convention, and then they want to play the LARP as well. So it's not really viable to do it in the way that we traditionally do it. So the idea came up that we would get the help of some software that we are developing, where you go and you choose some elements. For example, if you want to play an adept, or if you want to play a bone gnawer, and so on. Of course, we all have like our own little favorites within the World of Darkness, and as much as we can accommodate, we would love to have as many of the things as possible. I think Juhana and we sort of have a saying that if we can come up with something interesting, then it has a place in Berlin. If we can't, then it's probably not going to be there. So some of the stuff you choose, some of the stuff sort of the internal parts of the character, how you are as a creature and what you think and what your morality is and so on, will be decided via some choices you make and some questionnaire you go through where you answer some maybe philosophical questions or some other questions, and that will then generate the inner workings of your character.
That's really cool. Is that a type of looking to the future? Is that a type of thing that as a software can be rolled out to people that want to run their own events? Because I can see that if that's the front end to help lead to those choices, the back end is obviously where you create the characters that have certain bits that can be shifted and suited to different types of characters. Because obviously, if you're playing the difference between a Glasswalker and say a Virtual Adept is there's the technology thing that's similar, but the difference is the splat, as we call it. That's the difference. So I think that's really cool and from a computer programming kind of thing and a procedural thing, that's really wicked. And
it's all about that. Every time you close one door by making a choice, you also open some other ones. The idea is that to open up for a lot of stuff a month or two before the convention, so people can start choosing and preparing, and they also need costume and so on. And depending on how many people sign up, more slots will be open for this various types of creatures that are available. So we want people to play whatever they really want to do, but of course if we have a city filled with like 2/3 of Tremors, then maybe it's going to be a little bit weird, right? So
it's just a pyramid scheme. It's just a pyramid scheme.
I think, we didn't answer the question about the software being available or licensed. I think it looks like it's not going to be at this time.
Okay, I think that answers about the software, doesn't it, Mike?
Yes, it does.
That's pretty cool. I like it.
I'm psyched.
Yeah.
I think it's an awesome idea.
Okay, so for the next question, I mean, this covers, this is going beyond the LARP events that are going to be at World of Darkness Berlin. So obviously there's venue space for more than just the LARPs then. So there's venue space for tabletop gaming as well. And I believe also, is there also venue space for Vampire the Eternal Struggle, the card game based on Vampire the Masquerade?
What we want at World of Darkness Berlin is basically any way that you can interact with the World of Darkness. So that includes LARP, it includes tabletop, and it includes the card game. And we are in talk with the European organization that have the European Championships and talk with them right now about if we should have a competition at Berlin together with them. And we would very much like that, and hopefully it will be locked down and settled before the new year begins. So much more on that on the website in the coming weeks. But yes, I definitely hope that we will have a lot of Eternal Struggle going on. Yeah.
I hope people also bring along some of the board games that have been based on both Vampire the Masquerade and Vampire the Requiem, because there's two kind of Prince of the City type games. I've never had the chance to play, and it'd be great if there was just a game ready to join and just to see it in action. And same for Vampire the Eternal Struggle. I know jack about it. Mike, however, is
yes indeed.
Yes indeed. He says
I'm the American champion of the losers bracket. I'm the best of the worst when it comes to VTES.
Congratulations. I think, no, but I mean, even if we don't have anything formal, even if we don't have an actual competition, it would be amazing. Obviously, we want people to play. And I think immediately you have suggested two very good program items. One would be bring board games and run them. If you have these board games and run them and own them, and want to come and run a session for somebody who hasn't tried them before, or somebody who loves them with a passion, get in touch. We can put you on the program. And of course, I think, I think for card games, I think there's a lot of people who would like to try, who just never got around to it, who would love to learn. And if anyone's willing to teach, that's also something we'd love to see on the program.
Excellent.
And I think a very important thing about the program is that it is open. So we, World of Darkness Berlin will not function unless people come and show and tell what they're doing and what they're passionate about, and talk in panels about how to create worlds, or how their campaigns are running, or how they run their tabletop and how they've been doing for many years, or showcase stuff they've done, or play board games and so on. And you just go to the website, and there's a form where you can contact us and say you really want to do something, and then we'll talk, and everything is basically accepted if we feel that it's something that will benefit everybody. And I think that is the core thing about Berlin, is that we have been doing this for so many years, many of us, and we have so much to share, and we can learn from each other. No matter what the medium is that you are engaged with the most, I can learn from the card games. I can learn from the board games and tabletop and so on.
Yeah, because looking at your program, you've got some interesting things already on there. Like there's a talk about a workshop about the prosthetics, for obviously people wanting to create prosthetics for the various different characters across all of these IPs. It's like, whether you're playing a Nosferatu or a type of werewolf, or some type of, you want to make your ghost for Wraith. That's really cool. And I can't imagine what other things you've possibly got coming up that you just need to finalize and then announce. Like, you've got a bit of time to have stuff come in, and it's cool that people can obviously come forward and hopefully offer their services in some exciting manner.
We are just now talking to 3 different designers of LARPs that want to run their LARPs at Berlin. So there's definitely going to be more LARPs, some short, some long, and there's going to be many more stuff about whatever thing that people are doing out in the world with World of Darkness. I'm super psyched about what people are bringing in. There's going to be so much cool stuff. But we're going to keep on publishing new program items basically all the way up to the convention, and there's going to be so much to choose from. So it's going to be super cool.
Yeah, certainly. So, we just had the Convention of Thorns major LARP event with, really cool high production values and kind of a classic setting. And we've already talked here a little bit about maybe doing something in the future with Lair of the Hidden or something in Venice. So I was kind of just wondering, what sort of historical settings would you really like to explore in a live action setting for World of Darkness?
Well, I'm just going to say that this is going to be a sort of blue skies thinking. So this is not a promise that these are games that actually happen. But
right.
We were actually talking a little bit with Bjarke about that, and I think that the thing that captured our imagination was the idea of a World of Darkness set in the far ancient past of the 80s, because I think that there's a lot of stuff in that era that is quite nice for Vampire. One of the first things that came to my mind was this kind of cocaine cowboys, 80s Miami drug culture, that sort of thing, because to me it almost feels like the actual historical things that were happening there at that time in the criminal world were almost like Vampire already. Yes. Even without any of the Vampire. Like the stuff is so crazy.
Have you looked at because there's a particular book that immediately comes to mind, which is why can't I now think of the name? Mike, what's the one that's the 80s Requiem book? It's called
New Wave Requiem.
New Wave Requiem is all that, and I'm sure you can just plunder it for ideas for that kind of thing to get some inspiration. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a load of things. You've also got the very serious issues around to do with sexually transmitted diseases and AIDS, and how that relates to vampires. So you can look at that very serious topic and how that has some influence in it to how vampires act in that setting. That level of paranoia and fear, which also I'm sure has some sort of resonance with modern day things and current things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this is just my style, but I think doing it in a too funny a way, I think, would be a tragic waste of potential. because of course you can do that, but I think there's a kind of an it's kind of an age of extremes, and there's so many things going in different directions in terms of themes. That on one hand you have this amazing level of excess, just some things like the Ventru and that kind of world of money. And at the same time, you have, like you mentioned, the whole age situation in the US and around the world, and a lot of things like that, where the kind of fates people have are very tragic and very, very different.
I have a dream. I've been recently reading up on like avant-garde theater of like the sort of First World War period. Bear with me. So things like the Cabaret Voltaire, where the Dadaists in Switzerland, and also the theater of cruelty, which is of course really well known as well. And these were these like weird art spaces where they were putting on these very extreme performances of different kind, and very much in reaction to all of the violence and madness of like the age that they were living in, and this feeling that all of meaning was collapsing and so on. And I haven't quite nailed exactly what the connection is, but there's something about like violence and mortality and immortality that makes me think that somewhere here there is like the perfect World of Darkness idea, and I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to figure it out, and then just staging those like. And also maybe a part of this just that I just want an excuse to restage those like very iconic moments in like absurdist theater, and then people it with characters to whom like who also have the luxury in some way to think about the absurd because they're not mortal or they are in these very strange life situations or unlife situations for themselves. I love that.
Bjarke, have you got you have a dream as well, or?
I have so many. I'm a World War One nerd, so I would love to do stuff there with werewolves. Sort of that the way that nature changes to a complete wasteland. I think there's great potential doing stuff there with trench warfare and werewolves. I think it's super difficult to do, but that would be great. I would also love to do like Alaskan gold rush in the midst of winter when the sun never comes up. Vampire, that would be absolutely great.
I would love that.
But that's sort of the two main things, and of course do something on a weird continent would also be great, like going to South America into the jungle, doing stuff there, just because it's a wild and crazy idea. It's not impossible to do. It just takes a lot of work, and the tickets, of course, are going to be like massively expensive. So, but yeah.
All right, cool. So just kind of like starting to wrap things up here. With regard to World of Darkness Berlin, what sort of other competitions do you have going on? We mentioned the kind of cool story contest, but what other things can people get involved with at the show?
Well, we have something we call the World Championships of Darkness, which is essentially like a really epic quiz show. I feel that people who are super knowledgeable about lore don't get the respect they deserve. And of course, to be in the finals, you actually, I think what we're going to do is you're going to be able to qualify online, so everybody gets to try out and see if they would be able to qualify. But then, I mean, if you do qualify, then you actually have to go to Berlin to do the thing. And currently, we're looking at that you have to sit a written exam. So it's going to be like school, very serious, very serious. And then the finalists, maybe 3 people, we're going to put them on stage to like to talk on the kinds of questions that you can't answer with multiple choice. It's obviously going to be a lot of fun, but it's also going to be, I think it's going to be like super exciting if you're into this stuff, because you can't watch something like this, or you can't engage with something like this and not also compete in your mind. So even if you're just sitting watching the finals, I think it's going to be thrilling. So that's something that I'm pretty excited about.
An important part is, of course, that the competition is run by one of our friends who is a doctor of astrophysics. He's called Syksy Räsänen, and he's been running, I think, for 17 years, a vampire campaign with all of the books. So,
whoa.
He has read all of the books, and he remembers all of the things in all of the books. So everything is in the campaign. He knows a lot. Juhana has been playing that campaign on and off, so it's going to be really exciting.
I play in that campaign. He's a wonderful game master because I've learned a little trick on how you survive in that game, and that is you have to ask. So, what do you think would be the thing I should be doing? And then you will get a very good answer. How to spend your XP, how to win difficult situations using your superpowers, and similar World of Darkness problems.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
I guess technically we're bringing in a LARP called Dancing with the Clans, which is basically a dance-off. Like you sign up in clan teams, and then it's a disco dance-off. It's so much fun. I have seen this played. It's insane because there's this sort of beautiful, weird balance of like you have to be pretty serious about this stuff to be able to do this. But then while you're actually doing it, it is sort of competitive sort of disco dancing. Just ridiculous enough to sort of that it doesn't matter. Like it's all about if you go all in, it doesn't matter very much if you're a good dancer or not. But of course, when people are, it's even more enjoyable. And one very good dancer, in fact, a much underappreciated dancer is Mark Reinhagen, and he has promised to participate in Dancing with the Clans. And I think he's looking for a team. So I'm not sure what clan he wants to dance. But if you have ideas, I think you can reach out to him on Facebook and try to recruit him for your team.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Does that cover all the competitions then, or events like that? I guess again, you said like if people have got more ideas, they can get in contact. I don't know, Nosferatu-based hide and seek would be something. Ultimate hide and seek or something like that. I don't know. So I guess we're on to the last question then, Mike. Well, not quite the last question to finally round off. So. Of course, this is World of Darkness Berlin. That's the event. Which other European cities would you like to consider for in future, maybe that you think would be a good fit for a follow-up to World of Darkness Berlin, or that you did consider? So, maybe there was a top 3 choices that you had in mind other than Berlin that would fit. Just purely interested, really.
Yeah, so of course Stockholm was on the list since White Wolf is in Stockholm. Copenhagen, because that's the city I've lived in most years and I know it intricately. And then it's Berlin. That was the top 3 in like the 3-2-1 order, and the number 1 was Berlin. I would love to do stuff in Istanbul. I think that would be absolutely great.
Sure, I can understand that. Yeah.
Cairo would be great, not Europe, but Cairo would be great to do stuff in.
But Istanbul is really difficult now, obviously. So yeah, I mean, it's sad, but we also have to look at the politics here. I mean, for very similar reasons. I should have mentioned it before when we were talking about Romania. Romania is really corrupt, unfortunately. So it's also very difficult to do productions there for those kinds of reasons. So it kind of sucks. But of course, we have to keep an eye on the real world events as well as the World of Darkness. I've been to Edinburgh a couple of times this year, and I'd never been before, but that struck me as like amazing potential for this kind of thing as well. So
yeah, beautiful. Edinburgh's great. I think just because I'm purely biased, I think there's certain places around Manchester because you again get that 80s feel because you had some classic 80s clubs there, like where various bands like New Order and so forth kind of started out, and also the whole Victorian kind of industry there. But that's my bias, total bias. Not that I've written an entire vampire setting based on Manchester at all as well. Yeah, I guess that leads us to the last question then, doesn't it, Mike? Our classic closing question for all interviews.
It does. But before we get to that, I just want you guys to, kind of tell people where they can contact you. Maybe like a Twitter account or something if they have any questions, or maybe an email on the World of Darkness Berlin website, just to kind of, people have further questions or are excited about the con coming up, they can get in contact with you.
Our website is worldofdarkness.berlin. That's it, worldofdarkness.berlin. And our Twitter is at @WOD_Berlin, so WOD_Berlin. And I guess those are the easiest ways. There's a Facebook group, and I think there's actually some people who are going to the convention have started up like a social hangout Facebook group as well to get to know people. I should also say, if you're interested in submitting to the scenario competition, you should really look into it. Like it is a relatively low threshold. It's 2 pages, just the thing that you need to hand in at first, and then out of those, a number are selected to submit like a full game. So you're not investing months and months of time in this unless you have a decent chance of actually being played at the convention. And there's also a special Facebook group for people who are potential authors to share inspiration and ideas and support each other. And if you're even considering submitting, you can check that out. I think it's authors for World of Darkness Berlin on Facebook.
Great. Yeah, we'll put some links into the show notes so that people can easily get to all of that. And now for the final closing question. We ask everyone this when they're a guest on our show, and going to have to ask each of you individually. So, Bjarke, if you could be a household appliance, which would you be and why?
That's a great question. I think I would be the cast iron skillet, because I think that's the tool I use the most in the kitchen, and it can be used for everything and anything. If you have that, you can cook anything.
Johanna, how about yourself?
A household appliance. I can't figure out a metaphor that makes sense. What's like really loud? I'd be a radio, probably. Like just going on and on, but sometimes there's it's important for democracy and like and some valuable stuff can come out of there, but mostly it's just noise and entertainment.
Excellent. And Johanna, how about yourself?
I think I would have to say that my answer would be a blender. To me, it seems like just a very satisfying existence that you can just sort of sit there and turn everything into goo.
Excellent.
Great. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming here on the show. Definitely appreciate all the great information about World of Darkness Berlin, and sounds like it's going to be an exciting time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. We're really looking forward to seeing you there.
Yes, yeah, we're. I think I'm pretty much locked in for it. I think, there's stuff to go in the background, Mike. I guess you're working out, but we'll be there in some sort of presence. That's for certain. And,
90% chance I'll be there.
90%.
Maybe 95.
That's pretty decent.
Awesome.
Right. Well, I guess that's it. And thank you for coming on and taking the time to answer a lot of questions. And with that, Mike, we'll be moving on to our last segment of the show, won't we?
Yep, that's right. We're going to take a quick break and then be back with a secret frequency.
It's under the stairs. I want my mom.
In 2011, we brought you Krampus. In 2013, we brought you The Devil's Footprints. Now, in 2016, we're ahead of the memes, all right? And we're bringing you the most terrifying holiday secret frequency yet. The Yule Cat. So deep within the rolling hills and short forests of Iceland, the giant, fearsome beast slumbers, emerging at the end of each year to hunt. It hungers for human flesh, prowling through the sparse countryside and urban sprawl alike, waiting to pounce with sharp teeth and fierce yellow eyes. There's only one way to ward off the Yule Cat, and that's to put on a new piece of clothing. That's right, fresh socks or a new ugly sweater from Grandmom are all you need to keep the cat at bay. And interestingly, if we dig a little bit deeper into the legend, the Yule Cat is purported to be owned by the giantess Gorilla, who is a cruel creature living in the Dimmu Borgir lava field, who captures and punishes naughty children. According to legend, she is never short of food. So, alright, how do we use the Yule Cat in the World of Darkness without making it just, like, outright silly?
Okay, I'm going to jump in with the one because I think I suggested that it's a great creature that's possibly an aspect of the Wild Hunt for Changeling the Lost. And I think with how Changeling the Lost is getting more, the Wild Hunt or that concept is going to be more featured, it could be a great kind of form for one of those Fae-type creatures that are sent out by the gentry to obviously steal children. It fits in that kind of way. So obviously it's some sort of fake creature. It has obviously particular bands, which is you wear fresh, brand new clothes that have to be all completely brand new. So that idea fits in perfectly with that. Or obviously it could be a creature an aspect that is used by the by the Winter Court. So the Winter Court is all about fear.
Yep.
And about no, they're not about fear. They're about hiding, but also the Autumn Court is about fear. So maybe they work together with this wintry, fearsome creature, and it's a way of almost telling a mimetic lesson to humans about how to hide. And the idea of changing clothes is also something within your mind to allow you to hide from the gentry when they come hunting. So it could be used in both ways, I think. That.
Yeah, that's certainly a great idea. Actually, one thing I was thinking of was for werewolf. The Yule Cat kind of makes this interesting animist spirit. Perhaps some sort of like pre-modern spirit of consumerism.
Oh yeah.
So, when you look at 18th century Iceland, you've got wealthy landowners that use the tale of the Yule Cats to kind of encourage workers to reach their quotas for wool. And because of that, the Yule Cat manifested into something more or less tangible in the Umbra. And these kind of archaic spirits are always a trouble for the Garou and the Uratha alike. So you really have to figure out, do we destroy this, or do we try to set it onto a more beneficial task for the modern era?
That's really cool. Yeah, it would be also an interesting creature that if it possesses someone, and you get one of the ridden, because then you've got a human that is, again, like bearing cat-like features that are slowly emerging as the spirit takes hold. At least in Wealth of Satan, that's how that works with the ridden and the claimed. And that then allows you to get in that kind of animistic, kind of human half-cat kind of thing versus the werewolves. And, I'm sure it's a very big cat. I've seen the cats they get in Norway. They're big, fluffy mofos. Any other ideas then, Mike?
I got plenty. Here, yeah. I'll give you another one. This actually comes from Chig, because we were talking about it earlier. So Chig said that the Yule Cat may be some sort of a Thelain, which is one of the Fae in Changing the Dreaming, from their dark court, which, amongst other things, eats humans. So, okay, you can see that there's kind of an easy connection right there. And it's a good starting point for an antagonist, but you could actually take this a step further. Maybe the Yule Cat was indeed some sort of ancient Thelain that existed up until maybe the 18th century, we'll say. And now, in modern times, in the modern nights, as the legend kind of comes back in memes and the sort, maybe there's a Puka who sets out to emulate this dark legend to kind of eke out any glamour he can from unsuspecting mortals. Which really opens up this kind of fall from grace story in many ways, where this changeling continues to reap glamour from the mortal world. And they might have to turn to some darker deeds to reinforce the act they're putting on and becoming the Yule Cat itself.
Interesting. I had an idea. Maybe it is actually just a cryptid, but the reason for why the new clothes is important is perhaps the cryptid. So this big, you could almost think it's like in the UK when you get alien big cats. When I say alien big cats, I mean like people that are brought into the British Isles, like lions, tigers, and so often they get set free and kill livestock. But what if it's a large cat? But the reason the legend persists that it is deterred by new clothes is actually it is sensitive to the dyes and chemicals used in the manufacturing of clothes. So that's where the legend has more of a basis in a science, but that could work then quite well with like something like Hunter the Vigil there.
Yeah, certainly. I don't know if I brought this up before, but regarding great cats in the UK, a lot of those legends or myths appear around Glastonbury, UK, where of course there are no big cats. Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, there's a few. There's different ones. There's one that's around Manchester, which is called a striker, which is a big black cat that smells of like that's wet and smells of like the swamp or something and roams the moors. So it's interesting that the concept of alien big cats predates possibly. Well, I say predates, but then you don't know. You go far enough back when obviously the British Empire was clearly colonizing everywhere. It only takes a few mental landowners to bring back. Oh, that's a wonderful creature to bring back. And you've got like the local equivalent of the Beast of Gévaudan, but like in the film Brotherhood of the Wolf, the beast, which is apparently a wolf, actually turns out to be a lion. Spoiler alert! If you've not seen it, spoiler alert! We really needed a Wooga button on that to put in place. But the point is, like, I think that possibly is where those legends could come up from. But I mean, I don't know what you're saying with Glastonbury. How far back does that go?
Well, all right, here. We're gonna go down a rabbit hole, Chris. Glastonbury, UK, great cats. Me, I grew up in Glastonbury, Connecticut, in the United States, which actually does have bobcats and mountain lions, for example. So what if there's some sort of a link? They have the same name. Then one day, I was looking at some geologic maps, and the name of the geologic strata in Glastonbury, Connecticut, is called Avalon, which King Arthur, Glastonbury, UK. Look, it's clearly that they're linked somehow by a portal, is what I'm saying, Chris.
Oh, okay. You say these cats come out from deep in the ground, and that somehow they're connected by the hollow earth kind of theory.
Even better, Chris. Even better. Yes.
Oh, well, okay, fine. We'll go with that.
All right.
Anything for the other games? Oh, God. Promethean. I guess it's a crazy... That would be a weird-ass Pandoran. I can't imagine...
Could be.
A Pandoran related to Christmas? What if... Oh, God, that's a horrible idea. A Christmas tree where every bauble is a Pandoran.
What about...
Anyway.
Yeah, in Promethean, what about a... I've always had this kind of image of a kind of ragdoll Promethean of sorts. So maybe like the Yule Cat is actually searching not only for clothing in this case, maybe clothing doesn't actually ward it off. That's just a, false premise. This Yule Cat is actually looking for flesh and clothing to stitch together some sort of a ragdoll version of itself, and that's really what the Yule Cat is.
Oh, okay, so rather than clothing, it is actually the flesh it's taking away to renew itself. Oh, okay, cool. I have no idea. Nothing for Mummy. That would be ridiculous.
Mummy. I don't know. Set? Cats?
Yeah. You mean Bastet for cats.
Indeed. Well, Set, the god Set, had a relationship to cats, right? I'm remembering that correctly.
No, Set is snake. I think it had a relationship to snakes as well.
I think it's the opposite of what World Darkness is. All right, gonna go look this up live on the show.
I think Set is related to a creature that never really existed because he has the weird nose. It looks like some sort of cross between like a rabbit and something else.
There's nothing on the Wikipedia article.
That's me thinking about the various things and about kind of the joke on Stargate that Teal'c makes about the Set guard. Christ, we're now talking about Stargate. Christ's sake.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I can't think of really how it fits really well with anything else in the World of Darkness. It could essentially also, going back to werewolf and thus mage and so forth, it could just also be a very old god that's taken a form that's more easier to stay within our reality if it takes on a more animalistic form. Yeah, I don't know. I think we've exhausted that.
I got one more. I got one more, Chris. I was thinking of Vampire the Masquerade. Maybe these aren't great cats. Maybe it's not some giant cat that's terrorizing the village. But instead, what if there was like a local Tzimisce Priscus who only awakens from torpor during the winter months? And when he does, he sends out his little four-legged Schlachta, his kind of flesh-crafted ghouls, to capture unsuspecting victims. So the legend of clothing protecting you is false, but there's certainly some truth to safety in numbers. So as it turns out, just spending time with your family and friends for the holidays is the best way to keep the Schlachta away.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we've covered everything for the Yule Cat. I have to thank Sam for bringing my attention to that one. When I heard it, I was like, the what? Like, that's so... And I thought the Krampus was a weird Christmas thing, but, the Yule Cat.
Yeah, certainly. So, yeah, I think it's a good time to kind of close out the show here. We, of course, are Darker Days Radio. You can check us out on Facebook. We have facebook.com/Darker Days Radio. We have our Twitter account at Darker Days Radio, and you can also, if you want to get in contact with us, shoot us an email over at darkerdaysradio@gmail.com. Anything else that we should cover, Chris?
We have our constant Google Plus community. We have all the videos we've done with Beasts of War. We have, hopefully, we should be doing some more stuff with them in some way to spread the word about World of Darkness and Chronicles of Darkness.
Certainly.
So that'll be good fun. I think that is everything that we've got. And of course, we've got the blog where you can read and everything about any gaming that we post up, which is just... Right now, it's Toy Soldiers. It doesn't fit the podcast medium to talk about, but that's there. Of course, though, you can also find more content with our friends at. You can find us at Network Zero for some Chronicles of Darkness content. We've got our friends at Midnight Express for more classic World of Darkness content, and we always got our good friends over at Full Metal RPG who are doing fun World of Darkness, Chronicles of Darkness content, and say lovely things about us, and their show's great. Especially if you want to listen to D&D stuff. I haven't really delved into their D&D stuff, but Mike, have you listened in on their shows for that?
No, I mostly just check out their Shadow Sworn Radio, which is World of Darkness focused. But yeah, Full Metal RPG is pretty dope.
Yeah, cool. Well, that is everything, I think. So I hope you enjoy the show, and get in contact with us, and hopefully we might see you at World of Darkness Berlin.
Certainly. All right, everyone. Good night.
Good night. I was going to ask, because obviously you've also had, as a LARP event recently, you had the Convention of Thorns event, and the scale of that event compared to End of Line and I guess to Enlightenment Blood are quite different in some respects. So is there kind of at least an acknowledgement going forward in the future that not only do you want to obviously run more of these high-quality LARP events, is also to at least to somehow support and help, I guess there's a sort of disperse the knowledge to allow people to also run their own LARP events in a similar manner, which possibly happen on a more local level? Is that something that's at least thought about?
Well, I should clarify first that we didn't make Convention of Thorns.
Sorry. Okay.
That's a Jobak Studios. That's a Danish-Polish, like our dear friends at a Danish-Polish company that did that. And they've actually, just a few hours ago, they've announced dates for 2 more runs of Convention of Thorns. So if you want to go to Poland and play it, you'll have 2 opportunities next year. And I think Johanna and Bjarke both played it. I was doing the Nordic LARP talks then, but I would say you both strongly recommend that experience. It's a ton of fun. But I mean, I guess this is also a White Wolf question, and so we can only speculate. But for, I think, yes, like for sure, they have said publicly on stages in New Orleans and other places that one of the reasons they want to engage with Nordic LARP or to bring these sort of high profile productions out is to show at a range of to showcase a range of tools that are actually quite mainstream in the role-playing culture that we come out of. And I think when we grew up playing Vampire, they looked more Nordic, they looked and felt more Nordic than just because we have access to spaces and funds in some different ways because of cultural reasons.
Oh yeah.
So that's more sort of mainstream, I guess. Here, these, I mean, obviously, Convention of Thorns or Enlightenment in Blood are not typical like Vampire LARPs from the Nordic countries. They are ambitious on a whole other level, and they're sort of professionally produced. But yeah, I think White Wolf does want to show that you can, by making these kinds of games and using these kinds of tools, you can make other elements of these stories, of these worlds, playable. Because whenever you introduce a rule for something, obviously that's going to focus gameplay in a direction. And if you say, okay, let's say that Convention of Thorns, for instance, didn't have, like, they just said, this game is not going to be about fighting. Like this game is not going to be about vampires killing vampires. That's not what this is about. And when you take that out, then it's a whole other type of gameplay that happens, and it can be very powerful. But it becomes a lot about deals and negotiations and relationships. So much about relationships, and I think that is interesting because White Wolf are demonstrating that for some purpose. But I think also that these tools were developed, like this tradition of play is a tradition. We're professionals who are using these tools, but it's important to know that Nordic LARP is developed over decades by thousands of people, and all of these tools are out there. And there's a lot. There's something called the LARP Writer Summer School that has a website where you can go and just learn some of the theory and tools of how these things are made. And if you want to make your own, like, local, more Nordic style LARP somewhere, nobody's going to stop you. I think everybody, like, from our perspective, is cheering you on. That's fantastic.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that certainly if somebody wants to kind of steal technique from us, that's totally fine. That's or ask questions or something like that. I think the goal here, as far as I understand it, for everybody is that there's many different kinds of ways of making vampire LARP. There's Mindside Theater is one way, and what we are doing is another way. And sometimes it's for the same people who are interested in both things, and sometimes it's for different people. And at least it's my hope that will sort of broaden the audience. But just sort of to keep things more concrete and less abstract, I'm going to tell a short anecdote about Convention of Thorns, where me and Bjarke were as players. I had a friend who, I didn't do this, but I had a friend who was also playing there, and he started to feel like am I really getting enough vampire in my vampire? And then he had this idea that the castle had like a fourth floor that was a ruined, kind of semi-burnt out, very evocative and scary place. So what he did, he went to the organizers and he said to the organizers that, can you provide to me like maybe 5-6 NPCs who are mortals who have been brought to the castle for us to hunt? And the organizers said, yeah, it's going to take half an hour and then they're going to be ready. And then what happened was that he went around and said, went around in-game asking like, I just organized us a bunch of mortals for us. So like, what say you, friends? How about we go to the fourth floor and have us a hunt? And then that's what happened. They went there and played like a game of hide and seek, where the mortals are told that if you can survive the next half an hour or the next hour, you are free to go. If you can't, then you die. And then the mortals run around screaming or hide someplace, and then the vampires hunt them. And that's the kind of thing that you can sort of make happen in that kind of a LARP environment.
I should say, by the way, that Convention of Thorns used both game mechanics and safety design that were developed for End of the Line. So that's just a really practical example of how these tools travel. I think also it's probably like a legal fact that you can't actually copyright game design. Thank God, because that would have, killed our whole community decades ago. But I mean, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, and this is like an iterative discipline. And making LARP productions because it's a physical event and you have to like have the people there and actually run it full scale to test it full scale. It develops very slowly if you can't use lessons from the stuff other people have learned. We engage that fully. That is not to say that this style of LARP is better. I think End of the Line, for instance, demonstrated really well that it works super well in combination. You come in and you get a taste of some other corner of the world of darkness that is not playable to you because of the characters or because of the kind of games you're normally playing, and then you experience something there that will deepen your experience of whatever your like main preference of gaming is. However, once it's been tested, let's see. Sure. And we're also co-developing it with some. Co-developing it with another LARP company. So we need to talk about what.
Oh yeah, sure.
What the possibilities are. But I mean, it's interesting. I think the whole idea of generating a character, like in so many role-playing traditions, you start approaching it from a sort of stats perspective in some way, and this is in this kind of gameplay, your driving forces and your morality and your relationships and the goals of your group are in some way your stats. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I know.
So it's a whole other approach. But yeah, I mean, yes, as a computing problem as well, super interesting.
I'm a big proponent of like when running tabletop games, because I think, I mean, this can happen with certain games where it's such a kitchen sink of so many options that it can become quite intimidating to even know where to begin. And often that can also mean that people are so intimidated that they always seem to keep going down the same stereotypes for particular characters. I think that's, again, this is some of the things that we can things to comment on, is like the difference between like why there are less clans in Requiem. And one of the things I really like, though, and I think this is can be applied, it turns up in the Iron Kingdoms roleplay game, but I think other games use it, and I think Cthulhu Tech to a certain extent uses it, and I would use it for Vampire as well, and I always do it, is I don't allow the entire kitchen sink, because it's too much for me as a game master, as a storyteller, to make a accessible story that can accommodate all those options. I would rather limit it down, but still allow the players to explore within that. And sometimes you get a lot more, some more options explored, even though yes, they're both Toreador, but like they're very different flavors of Toreador, and to get all of those out in one game is quite great. Whereas if you just go with the kitchen sink kind of element, sometimes no matter which game you're running, every time you run it, the same kind of flavor of Toreador comes out, because people know that they're the Toreador for that game, and they just go off and do that. So the idea of closing some doors to open others, or at least allow more granularity in exploring the limited options that you now have is a big thing for me.
I
think that one of my big things when I design games is about that. It's about closing doors, because with closing options for your participants, you also, because you are imposing stuff on them, you're also creating an alibi for them to explore some stuff that they probably wouldn't do otherwise.
They don't all meet in the end due to some weird wizard drawing them there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that the first choice you're gonna choose when you join Enlightenment Blood is that we have like two categories. One is that you can explore the world of darkness. Do you want to explore the world of darkness? Which is that anarch coming to the city and just exploring various locations. And the other choice is, do you want to inhabit the world of darkness, which is when you, for example, sign up to then you're going to be the Bone Gnawer that lives at the squat, and you're probably maybe going to be there most of the time, and then maybe go to one or maybe two other locations, but you will probably circle back to sort of the den that you're hanging out at, and sort of filling that part of the world. So it depends on what type of lot that you want, and that's where the sort of the when you dive into what character you're gonna be at Enlightenment, but that's where it starts.
I think what the guys are saying also about this, what all of you are saying actually about focus is so important, and I think also what you were saying about like nuance and granularity allows this nuance and actually adds to complexity by taking out some of the options. You move in a less stereotypical direction within the remaining options. That is so totally true. But I just think when Johanna and Bjarke say, if we have an interesting idea for it, then it can be an Enlightenment in Blood. I think that's shorthand, and I would like to translate that. Like, of course, all of this stuff, if it's in the world of darkness, it's interesting. Like, even the bad stuff is interesting. But what we mean when he's shaking his head, okay, to me everything is interesting. But at least all of the good stuff is certainly interesting and interesting to play in some situations. But when we say, do we have an interesting idea for it in Enlightenment in Blood? I think what we mean is, do we have a playable idea? Like, do we have a take on it that will make it possible to experience something interesting and to create something interested within like this runtime, which is probably going to be like 5 hours, and we can assume that all of the players are going to want to see more than one location, just because it's awesome to be able to walk down a few blocks and go into another space, and this whole other thing is happening there. So we need to build that possibility into all the players, for all the players as well, and that eats up some of the time. So then, like, what's interesting is, like, what is it possible to do something awesome with within that framework that is imposed upon us by the circumstances as well.
Yeah, exactly. That was an important clarification, because of course what we are constantly thinking about is that can we provide a game that's as good as it can be within for this type of character, and if the answer is yes, then we go forward. But if we don't feel confident that